My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Peacemaker Season 1, and this will be a spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it, then come back and watch my review because I will be going in depth. I was not excited for this show. Now, I really liked the Suicide Squad, and I thought John Cena was great as Peacemaker in that movie, and when he died, I thought that was a really effective moment. So as soon as that happened, I'm just like, okay, so the TV show is going to be a prequel. Okay. And then the end credit scene shows up, and it's like they found some kind of contrived nonsense to keep him alive. And I'm just like, oh. And then I saw the trailer, and I didn't think it looked all that good. And after watching this show, I have to say that I was absolutely right. This is a bad show. People really love this show, and I just don't get it. Like, I don't think there's anything remotely great about this show. Like, some people calling it the best DC show ever. And come on, that's just garbage. Like, come on. We all know it's Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. Like, nothing else even comes close. But this is a show that I really don't get why people are praising it as much as they are. But, let's begin talking about the characters. John Cena is really good in this show. He's an actor that took him a while to find his footing, but I think in the past few years he has. I think it all started in Bumblebee when he made that one really funny joke like, are we really going to trust them? They're literally called Decepticons. And then after that, he was in the Suicide Squad, he did a good job, and he is good in this show. And there are some moments where he has to flex his dramatic muscles, and he's able to pull it off. That said though, I don't like the handling of his character whatsoever. I don't understand why they went the route they did with this character, because this show is supposed to be a redemptive story arc for him. And I just don't buy it, and I actually think that's so much less interesting. Like, if this was a show focusing on Peacemaker being a villain, there was that one line, I love peace with all my heart, no matter how many women or children I have to kill to get it. And it's a really funny line, and I feel like if this story focused on him being a villain, it could be a giant critique on the ends justify the means. But this show doesn't go in that direction. Instead, it went in a much more generic direction that did nothing to me and felt untrue to the character that was set up in the movie. Like, there's a scene in episode 7, the second last episode of this show, where he gets beaten up by a bunch of nobodies, and I'm just looking back on the Suicide Squad, and like, there's one scene where him and Idris Elba wiped out an entire camp, and I'm like, where is that Peacemaker? That final fight with him and Rick Flag was a very emotionally powerful moment. The line Peacemaker, what a joke, had resonance to it. And they attempted to carry that over into this show, but the way they did it just felt very heavy-handed and didn't work. Not once did I buy that this character wanted to change, that he wanted to be a better person. Because it's trying to make it seem like the main motivation is his fight with Rick Flag, but am I supposed to believe this guy who's killed women, who's killed children, is actually that one fight with that one guy changed his entire worldview? I do not buy it for a second. And then there's one scene early on where he's asked to assassinate this family and he can't do it. But that literally goes against everything we know about this character. So nothing about this character reminded me of the character in the Suicide Squad. Yes, it's played by the same guy, he looks the same, he sounds the same, but just the character writing in of itself didn't work for me. Like in episode 6, he's just like, I don't want to kill anymore. And I didn't buy it. There's nothing in this show that would have shown that he wants to change who he is, and even who he is at the beginning of this show, they dumb him down so his character arc would be easier to handle, and I just think that's very lazy writing. Another issue I had is that he has all these helmets that have different abilities, but he almost never uses it. He uses one early on, we see how powerful it is, and then he doesn't use any until the very end of the show, and it's just like, you introduce these weapons, these gadgets he has, and he never uses them, so it's just like, what's the point? The one thing I did like about this character is that he had a pet eagle, and I just liked that relationship. Like, there's a few moments where Eagly actually hugs him, and you're just like, oh, that's actually pretty cute. Then we got the character Vigilante, who's played by Freddie Stroma, and he is the standard heel. This is a star-making performance from Freddie Stroma. He is really great in the show. He's just full of life and energy and personality. He's hilarious. Like, there's one episode where he's in jail, and just his delivery in that scene is spot on. It's perfect. That said, though, he isn't given the most to do. And what I mean by that is that he has nothing to do. He's the sidekick, he's there, he makes a few jokes, but he doesn't solve any purpose. If you take him out of the story, then it doesn't change anything that happens. You know, he's not given a character arc, he's just kind of there. And for such a great character, I wish they utilized him a bit more. Then we got Leota, and I just could not stand this character. I found her to be unbearably annoying and frustrating. Like, there's one moment in the last episode where she has a radio and she's supposed to say something and then she drops the radio, and it's just, I found this character being incompetent. Like, they tried to give her a character arc, but it never worked. She never felt like a defined character to me. I never bought her friendship with Peacemaker, and I just didn't like this character. They did try to give her a badass moment in the last episode, but I didn't buy it for a single second. Then we've got the character of Morn, who's just a nothing character. He's just there for the sake of it. There's a reveal that he's a butterfly at the end of episode 4. And then we've got a character find it out at the end of episode 5. And I don't understand why they did it that way, because you could have had that reveal for everyone at the end of episode 5. So I thought that was really odd. And yeah, he just, you know, him being a human taken over by butterfly, you'd think that, like, they would use that a bit more, that there's a part where he'd go against his own people, or we see the different philosophies on display, but no, he just ended up adding nothing. Then we got Harcourt, who I think the actress, Jennifer Holland, has potential. She just needs better material to work with, because I do find this character was just the cliche, tough female, she's quiet, she doesn't take any shit, and I just found to be a little dull, and I just wish they did a bit more with her, but there's definitely potential there. Then we've got Augie Smith, who did nothing for me. When I saw him in the Suicide Squad, I'm just like, yeah, that's a background character, and now they're making him one of the main characters of a TV show, and he still just feels like a background character. He never made me laugh. They were trying really hard with him, but it never worked. And there was one moment in the last episode where, like, one of the aliens are just like, hey, that human you're controlling, why does he have that stupid beard? And he just has this long speech about how he feels pathetic, and he's just, it did not work for me at all. Like, any emotional response they were trying to get there, they completely failed. Then you've got the character Sophie, who they're building up for the first 6 episodes. She's after Peacemaker. She's a cop wanting to do the right thing. And then she gets taken over by a butterfly, and any character development this character had just gets thrown away, and they just absolutely wasted her. Like, by the end, you really didn't need that character at all, because they could have just had anyone being taken over by that one butterfly. Then you've got Judah Master, who's a guy in the green suit, and you'd think that they'd play him up a bit more, that they'd give him something to do, but they really don't. There's one fight scene with him, he's kidnapped, he's captive, he escapes once, there's another fight scene, and then he attacks some people at a gas station. He really has no effect on anything. But my biggest problem with this season is that it's 2 very isolated stories that never come together. You know, the best TV shows, the best stories are when it's just one circle that you can tie all the characters, the themes, and the story within. You know, with Arcane, Piltover versus Zon, and you can tie all the characters and all the ideas and the duality of everything into this one circle. But a show like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you've got Bucky's story, you've got Sam's story, you've got Zemo, you've got White Russell's character, you've got all these different things, and because of that, it just feels scattered. And here, what you have is 2 circles completely isolated from each other. Completely. Like, you've got the butterfly storyline, which, concept alone, I should have loved. Like, I feel like we could have seen the James Gunn that made Slither in this storyline. He could have gone for some really cool body horror and just make it interesting, but I just found this story to be as underwhelming as they come. Like, it's present throughout this entire season, but there's almost never any progression until episode 6, where everyone gets taken over, and it's like it's building up to the finale in that one episode, and then the next episode, they're like not present at all. So then any momentum they could have gained from episode 6 is completely gone by the end of the next episode. They didn't carry it through. And just the fact that this plot doesn't really have a beginning just makes it seem very pointless. Like, all we know at the start is that they've been here for quite some time. The characters figure that out. There's a few action scenes. And then butterflies take over the entire police department, and then we get episode 8. Like, that's... It takes 8 episodes for them to tell that story with them. Really? I wish they took a bit more risks. Like, the one guy, the one good guy, they're like, oh, he's a butterfly. And I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. But nope, he's a good butterfly. Like, wouldn't it have been interesting if, like, Peacemaker became comfortable with this team and then it turns out they're all butterflies or something like that? Like, I know that ruins any potential for a season 2 with this cast. But I would have at least appreciated the risk, though. And instead, they just don't do anything. You know, and just the way they're written. Like, there's one part in the last episode where John Cena and the police person are fighting, and she's just like, I have no reason to hurt you. And then she just puts him down, and they stop fighting. And you're just like, really? Like, he literally just killed most of your people. He's about to kill your only food source. Really? It was just bad writing. And then he stops the threat. He watches Goth or whatever, the one butterfly, leave the body. And he keeps it as a pet. Like, what's stopping Goth from taking over another human? Like, I know they ran out of food source, but still. I just thought... You know, like, what's stopping Goss from getting his revenge at the end and controlling Peacemaker? And then the reason that they're actually trying to take over the planet, and I will get to that a bit later, trust me, I will, but it's not built up to at all, remotely. Like, the best villains are the ones whose goals and motivations are written within the story from beginning to end. And here they're just like, we need something to give the villains here. Not built up to... I just feel like this could have been a great body horror plot and they completely wasted it. And then the other storyline that's completely isolated from this one is when it focuses on Peacemaker's dad. Like, so much of this story depends on the fact that Augie put Peacemaker's vehicle under his dad's name. If you don't got that, then this entire story doesn't happen. So something that small, that contrived to set off this story, it just highlights the incompetence of the character and just the lacking story in general. You know, his dad's in jail for a few episodes and that plot doesn't go anywhere. A few episodes later, he gets out and he's like, I'm gonna kill my son now. And then when Peacemaker does fight his dad, it lacks any sort of emotional weight. Because I don't care about these two characters. I never really saw them be father and son, and it just didn't work. And it definitely didn't help that his dad was wearing a Power Rangers costume. Like, he just looked so goofy in that one episode. Like, if the two characters were fighting man-to-man fist fighting, maybe they could have gotten some emotional response from it, but they didn't, and they just completely failed. And the more I think about it, and the more what this story is trying to do, this should have been this season's main storyline, with the butterflies coming in season 2. Because the two separate ones are just completely isolated. Like, it would have made a bit more sense if Peacemaker's dad got taken over by a butterfly, and then that's when Peacemaker had to kill him, or something to tie them both together, but they never had that moment. James Gunn is known for having some funny writing, and he does have some funny lines. Like, there was a torture scene in episode 3, where they're trying to get some answers, so they're torturing Vigilante instead of Peacemaker, and Peacemaker's like, torture him all you want, I won't speak. And I thought that was funny. There was one line where Peacemaker's just like, everyone's saying fuck you to me, why is everyone fucking you to me? I thought that was a funny line. One line where Vigilante's like, I can't pee when my clothes are touching my butt. I know, I thought that was funny. But the majority of jokes did not land. The jokes just felt so forced. Like, the banter, it didn't feel natural. It just didn't work. Like, there's one scene where someone calls someone else a fork. You know, there's one character where there's a nude on a screen, and someone's just like, and tries to explain it all awkwardly, and it just didn't work. There's one scene where two people make a random abortion joke, which didn't work. There's a scene where Peacemaker just lists off a bunch of names, and it's such an obvious joke. One line where it sounds like we don't name genitalia. It's just lots of the lines and jokes that he was going for here completely fell flat for me. And another reason why the jokes didn't work is that I'm about to get political here, but James Gunn, I used to follow on Twitter when I had it, and he is very left-leaning, very left. And that's never comes through in any of his other previous movies, but it definitely comes through here. Every second joke is about race or something along that line, and it just never worked. It got very cringeworthy after a while. And yeah, I'll tie it back to my other big complaint. Fuck you, James Gunn. Fuck you. He gives the villains, mind you, so anything he's trying to speak to the villains here, they're the bad guys. But there's one part where the villains are just like, oh, humans. They view tiny minor inconveniences as assault on their freedoms. Wow, I wonder what in the past 2 years he could be talking about. I wonder. Minor inconveniences. The ability to provide for yourself and your family isn't a minor inconvenience, so fuck you. And then the villains give the cliche climate change speech that is getting so overdone by this point, and so they want to control humans so they can stop climate change? Yeah, that sounds like an evil villain thing to do. Just saying. There is some bloody action in the last episode, which I did enjoy, and the best part of this show is the opening intro. What a fantastic intro. Just the first time I saw it, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is golden. Like, this is hilarious. And I watched the intro before every single episode. Unfortunately, after that intro, every episode went downhill, but I still love that intro. Some other issues I have is that the effects aren't great. It really looks and feels like a TV show. Like, to me, this show feels no different than an all-rated CW show. The other references to the people in this universe I thought were really cringeworthy. The constant mentioning of Batman, Green Arrow, and the Justice League cameo at the end was just embarrassing, I found. The flashbacks don't work. They just show up when needed, and they just don't flow into the story. They just feel like a giant exposition dump. The whole plotline of the diary didn't work for me at all. And the human torpedo setup was really obvious, and that joke just didn't work. Look, I don't like this show at all. I think John Cena does show his acting abilities here really well. I think Freddie Stroma is a standout, and I do love his character. I just wish he had a bit more to do. And you can see potential within the storylines, but the way he brings everything together was a complete mess. The emotional beats didn't work. The majority of the jokes didn't land for me. There's not enough action or excitement to pick it up. The story is just really poorly handled throughout. I think this is a very bad show. So I'm going to go ahead and give Peacemaker Season 1 a 3 out of 10. I will not be watching Season 2 of this show. I will not be. But what did you think of Peacemaker Season 1? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.